Welcome back. Over the last 3 weeks, we have held debates in every school board contest in both Sarasota and Manatee counties. After all, what's more important than the education of our kids? And in the aftermath of Parkland, both school boards have had to wrestle with the new realities of protecting students and teachers, and both boards have had to deal with more than their fair share of dysfunction, backstabbing, and name-calling. Despite that, every candidate for every school board seat in both counties, every incumbent, every challenger, have shown up here at the trapezoid to debate each other except one, John Colognes, who is running for re-election in District 5. Now, let's be clear. Mr. Colognes has every right not to debate his opponent, James Golden, here at the trapezoid. He has every right not to let voters see how he answers questions under the TV lights, like every other school board candidate in both counties. And voters, well, they have every right to take that into consideration. So joining us right now is the Reverend James Golden, and we welcome you to the trapezoid.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to begin by asking you the same question I've asked every candidate for the school board who is here so far, because this is a political position, and voters have to make a decision about why they should rehire the incumbent or have them fired. So why should voters fire Mr. Colognes and hire you?
At first, I have no political agenda. I have no constituency that I have allegiance to other than the entire Manatee County constituency. But I think most telling is that after having been appointed by the governor to serve, and after having been given the opportunity to serve a full term without any election nearing, that at the first opportunity to have an election, 3 former school board members have endorsed me. School board member Ruby Bird, school board member Larry Simmons, who was also one of the names that was forwarded to this governor to fill the seat that Mr. Colognes eventually wound up occupying. And last but not least, Jane Faulsticker. So I feel very, very uplifted by the fact that 3 people who have done what I'm trying to do think that I would be better at doing it than the person who's presently in the seat.
Let me get you to respond to something that Mr. Colognes said to the newspaper here when he was talking about you and your candidacy. He said, I just don't think he has my skill set when it comes to education. I don't think he has been active in education's arena as far as the day-to-day workings and the policies we are trying to administer in Manatee County.
Okay. And you want me to respond to
Sure.
that? Well, when I first came to Manatee County, more than 20 years ago, I served as the chair of the School Advisory Council at Johnson Middle School. I have been involved with the school system as a substitute teacher. I've been, at one time, I tried to even get a school started in my church. So educational issues have always been a part of the community service that I give.
What is the biggest challenge facing Manatee County and the school board here? Because we have seen a lot of chaos over the last year or so. I don't have to tell you what's happened with the school board. Is it the way school board members get along? Is it the budget, the search for the superintendent? Is it security?
I wish that I could prioritize a biggest challenge. What I would like to say is that the school board is now facing a lot of immediate challenges, not the least of which is occasioned by the departure of the superintendent, who left just as the school was coming out of a very serious financial circumstance that was decades in the building, that impacted the kind of revenues that they were able to devote to hiring new teachers and keeping teachers, which impacted the quality of learning and teaching that happened with our children. So a lot of things are happening right now that are up in the air, and we need to make sure that moving forward we're together.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up. Our conversation with Manatee County School Board candidate from District 5, James Golding, continues after a quick break, so stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing this Manatee School Board District 5 with candidate the Reverend James Golding. We have a couple of areas that we want to get to really quickly here. Number one, what do you make of the discord that we have seen over the last year at the school board? You know, Scott Hopes was on here last week talking about his style. Mr. Colognes says that he has tried to rise above it. Is that good enough for you?
Well, all I can look back on is the record that Mr. Colognes has been publicly quoted in print media as describing another board member as a dog.
Yeah.
You know, that seems to be the term of choice these days. I'm not so sure when you're trying to be derogatory with someone. But beyond that, I think there was a general characterization that a certain segment of the board was resentful of the current chair of the board because I believe the quote was, "He's so smart and they are not." I'm not so sure how you create unanimity with those kinds of public expressions with current board.
So the board has been struggling in terms of how to raise test scores, how to get the district backing on track, because after all, it was almost taken over by the state a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. If you could boil down, you think, what is the secret to doing so? What would you do that you want voters to know about?
Well, for one thing, I think that the best practices with respect to financial oversight will cure a lot of ills with respect to loosening resources to address the academic problems. Specifically, I also believe that the passing of the referendum will help us to get quality teachers in a position to do the necessary job of teaching young people.
One more area, school security, on everybody's mind. You have the Guardian program in Manatee, but you also were quoted as saying you do not want to have schools with fences all around them. That's not the environment. So therefore, how do you protect our kids there, especially after what we experienced with Parkland?
I think that electronic surveillance, as expensive as it is something that needs to be seriously considered in terms of providing the best protection. We don't need people walking up and down the halls, first off, armed, to prevent something that may not ever happen. But what we do need are people who are trained to use the technology to discover a threat before it becomes a real threat, and to be able to react to it in the sterile environment of, as I said, the technology that is already available. I'm talking about cameras along fence line, along perimeters. I'm talking about cameras in hidden areas. And I'm talking about trained law enforcement officers who are able to call other trained law enforcement officers who are able to stop whatever breach might be occurring, whether it's a student that's beginning to act out or whether it's an intruder that is trying to come in. There's no too much price to pay for that kind of security. These are the times in which we live. Too many times violence has become the way in which we get redress.
We'll have to leave it there. Reverend, thank you very much. We want to thank the Reverend James Golding for coming here tonight, and we wish, Mr. Colognes, you availed yourself of the opportunity. When we come back, why is liver cancer on the rise? We'll explain after the break.